In a place outside of time, a crystalline lattice hung within a nebula of purple and gold. This was the observatory of eons. At its center, upon a silent obsidian throne, sat Azariel. His form was a shimmering silhouette of starlight, his face a calm, unreadable mask of light. He was a watcher, and before him a swirling vortex of energy coalesced for his final duty, the final glimpse. The vortex revealed two timelines branching from a single point in a gleaming modern city. In one, the city was bathed in a warm golden light. People walked with purpose and peace. The vision focused on a man's face, Kalen Reed, who was smiling as he held a child's hand. He was the catalyst for this future. In the other timeline, the same city was a ruin under a sky choked with black smoke. Skeletal buildings stood over empty streets, patrolled by figures in dark tactical gear. The vision found Kalen again, his face twisted in agony, his eyes glowing with a terrible dark power he couldn't control. He was the weapon that caused this ruin. Azariel understood. Salvation and annihilation resided within the same soul. He raised a hand, materializing a single teardrop-shaped crystal. He channeled the glimpse, the raw data of fate, into it. The crystal glowed with an unstable light before he let it fall, tumbling through dimensions toward a world that did not yet know its peril. His duty was done. The fulcrum is set, his voice echoed like grinding galaxies. The choice now is theirs, and his. Sunlight streamed through the tall, arched windows of a university archive where the air smelled of old paper and beeswax. Kalen Kale Reed was hunched over a large, fragmented clay tablet, delicately cleaning dirt from its cuneiform inscriptions. He was sharp and intelligent, but his eyes held a deep-seated weariness. Beside him was a photograph of his late mentor, Professor Albright, a kind-faced older man. Kale was working on Albright's final project, left unfinished after a supposed climbing accident a year ago that Kale never believed. He examined a strange, spherical geode found with the tablets. It was unnaturally smooth. When he ran a high-frequency scanner over it, the monitor showed it was completely dense. Impossible. "What were you into, Arthur?" he muttered to himself. "More of your proto-mythology nonsense." He tapped the geode, and for a split second the lights in the archive flickered and a wave of vertigo washed over him. He shook his head, blaming it on a lack of sleep. Turning back to the tablet, the cuneiform seemed to shift. For an instant, he didn't just see symbols, he understood them. He read of a seed of the sky that sleeps until the twin suns align and awakens the fulcrum. Then just as quickly, the meaning vanished. "Professor Albright's final obsession, I see," a voice said from the doorway. Kale jumped. A woman stood there, Ilara Vance. She was dressed in practical clothes that didn't hide her athletic build, and her observant eyes seemed to know him. She explained she was a colleague of Arthur's, a private consultant. "He told me if anything happened to him, I should check on his protege," she said. "He said you were the only one brilliant enough to see the patterns, but too stubborn to believe them." Kale stiffened, annoyed. He told her he was just cataloging Albright's effects and that his mentor had been chasing myths at the end. "Myths are the memories of forgotten truths," Ilara countered. He knew that. He also knew that geode shouldn't be opened. Just then, a deep, resonant thrum shook the building. The geode on the table began to glow, cracks spreading across its surface. "They're here," Ilara said, her voice grim. "We have to go. Now." She pulled a metallic baton from her jacket, which extended into a full staff. The large oak doors to the archive burst inward, turning to dust. 3 figures in dark armor and obsidian masks stood silhouetted in the doorway. The Fulcrum. "Give it to us," their leader commanded. "The Master demands it." Ilara moved to intercept them, telling Kale to stay back. Her staff clashed against their wicked-looking blades. The geode on the table cracked wide open, releasing a vortex of chaotic light that filled the room with whispers of 2 futures. One of the soldiers broke past Ilara and lunged for Kyle. Kale stumbled back and swung a heavy bronze bust of Socrates. The soldier caught it with inhuman strength, crushing the metal. As he reached for Kale's head, Kale's eyes locked onto his armor. In a flash of intuition, he saw a hairline fracture near the collar. He drove his fist into the precise spot. It wasn't a powerful punch, but the armor plate shattered. The soldier reeled back, and Ilara used the opening to knock him unconscious before dispatching the other 2. "We're out of time," she said, grabbing Kyle's arm. "They are the Ashen Covenant. They follow a man who wants to burn this world down. That rock is a recording of a prophecy, and that prophecy is about you, Kalen. It always has been. Arthur knew it. It's why he was killed." Her words shattered his logical world. Hearing sirens in the distance, she gave him a choice: denial or his life. He chose his life. A seamless elevator descended deep into the earth, its walls displaying flowing lines of code. Ilara explained that she was part of the Custodians, a secret order that protected the present from the parts of history that refused to die, like the beings known as the Watchers. Kale was skeptical, thinking of the Book of Enoch, but Ilara insisted that ancient texts were all filtered accounts of the same events. One Watcher, Azariel, was tasked with a final observation of humanity's future, and that observation centered on Kale. The elevator opened into a vast circular chamber where a living tree with silver leaves grew, its roots intertwined with glowing data cables. It was a stunning blend of the ancient and the hypermodern. Ilara explained that Kale's family carried a unique genetic marker, a resonance that allowed him to perceive the world on a deeper level, to see the history in an object, the stress in a structure. This was why Azariel's glimpse was drawn to his potential to be either a great builder or a great destroyer. The Ashen Covenant, led by a man named Malachor, wanted to push him toward destruction, to use him to trigger a global reset. She showed him Malachor's image, a charismatic man with fanatical eyes, who spoke of unmaking cities of greed and sin to build a new world from the ashes. Malachor was now hunting Kale for the source of the glimpse, the keystone of Azariel. To find it first, they had to follow Arthur's research. She handed Kyle his mentor's journal, which contained a flat stone engraved with a complex star chart pointing to 3 locations on Earth: Göbekli Tepe, Saqqara, and the ruins off Yonaguni. Azariel had fractured the keystone's location into 3 markers hidden at these sites. In the dry heat of Göbekli Tepe, Kyle held Arthur's star map stone. It grew warm as he walked among the ancient T-shaped pillars. His vision shifted, and he could see faint lines of energy crisscrossing the landscape. He followed a river of light that pooled beneath one of the central monoliths. Ilara urged him to focus, to see past the energy and find the flaw in the structure. He closed his eyes and saw the pillar's entire history, from its creation 12,000 years ago to the geological pressures that had stressed it. He found it. A hollow point near the base, a chamber sealed with a sonic lock. Using a tuning fork from his pack, he matched its frequency. A circular section of the pillar retracted, revealing a hidden compartment with the first shard of glowing crystal. As he reached for it, the sound of rotors thundered overhead. 3 black helicopters deployed dozens of Covenant soldiers. Malachor stood in the open door of one, his voice booming. "The fulcrum showing his true potential at last. Give me the marker." A firefight erupted. Kyle, clutching the marker, sprinted through the ancient maze. His new senses gave him an edge. He could see the trajectory of enemy fire and the weak points in their cover. Malachor leaped from the helicopter, landing with a ground-shaking impact and cutting off Kale's escape. He grabbed Kale by the throat, slamming him against a pillar. "You cannot run from your destiny," Malachor hissed, trying to corrupt him with promises of a cleansed world, a paradise shaped by their power. For a moment, Kyle saw a flash of the dark future and felt the allure of control. But then he saw Elara fighting for the weak world Malachor despised. He focused on the pillar at his back, seeing a massive ancient fissure running through its core. He slammed his head backward with a focused, resonant pulse of intent. The 20-ton monolith shattered, collapsing into a mountain of rubble between him and Malachor. In the chaos, he and Elara escaped through an underground tunnel he had instinctively located moments before. Miles away, he held the marker, his resolve hardened. Deep beneath the ocean off Yonaguni, Japan, Kale and Elara swam through the cyclopean ruins of a submerged city. They had retrieved the second marker from an Egyptian tomb and were now at the final location. Kale, now more confident, led them to a vast air-filled chamber at the heart of a pyramid-like structure. On a pedestal was the final crystal shard. As Kale picked it up, all 3 markers in his possession fused into a complex, interlocking artifact of light and geometry. The keystone of Azariel. Suddenly, the chamber flooded with light as panels slid away, revealing Malachor and his elite guard. They had been waiting. "Thank you for assembling it for me," Malachor said calmly. He ignored Elara and approached Kale, his eyes fixed on the keystone. "You think this is about destruction," he said, his voice persuasive. "The glimpse wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. A blueprint for ascension. The fire is a crucible that will burn away imperfection and elevate humanity. It will elevate you to godhood. Join me, Kalen." Kale remembered his mentor's words. "Anyone who wants to be a god is definitionally unfit for the job." He closed his fist and the keystone was absorbed into his body. "You want it? Come and take it." The fight was brutal and metaphysical. Kale, now empowered, turned Malachor's strength against him, but Malachor eventually landed a devastating blow. The keystone was forced from Kale's body and Malachor seized it. He held it aloft, intending to overload it and use the ley line convergence to trigger a planetary cataclysm. The chamber shook violently. "Kale!" Elara shouted over the noise. "You are the fulcrum. You decide the balance. It's not the keystone, it's you." Kyle looked at the ritual and saw its flaw. Malachor was an unstable conduit. Kyle got to his feet. He didn't charge. He centered himself and reached out with his own innate resonance, harmonizing with the keystone's power. He found the dissonant frequency of Malachor's rage and pushed back with a pure tone of balance. The chaotic energy blocked by Kale had nowhere to go but back into its source. Malachor screamed as the raw, untamed power consumed him, dissolving him into a shower of light and ash. The keystone fell to the floor, inert and cool. The ritual was broken. Months later, Cale stood on the parapet of a restored medieval castle in the Scottish Highlands, the new headquarters for the Custodian Order. The world was still recovering from the aftershocks of Malachor's attempt, an event the baffled scientists were calling the Great Anomaly. Ilara joined him. He looked calmer, filled with a quiet purpose. He was no longer just a historian, he was a guardian. He picked up a simple stone from the castle wall and closed his eyes, seeing its entire history in an instant.